Federal government engages the United States over suspension of visa overstay and drop box. Federal government to stop consumer ownership of gas cylinders. In international news, British Prime Minister Theresa May continues to lose the Brexit fight as her premiership appears doomed. And in sport, FIFA lectures Flying Eagles, other countries on football's new laws.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The federal government is crafting a policy that will outlaw consumer ownership of liquefied petroleum gas cylinders, saying the move would help expand the use of LPG, popularly known as cooking gas. The government says it has reached an agreement with 2 original cylinder manufacturers to deliver 600,000 cylinders to LPG distributors on credit with a prepayment period of 18 months. Senior technical assistant to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Brenda Ataga, revealed the government would soon commence a clampdown on illegal roadside LPG dealers. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Muhammad, has been dragged to the High Court in the Federal Capital Territory over alleged age falsification. The petition alleges that the CJN falsified his date of birth from December the 31st, 1950 has contained in all his official records, including that of WAEC, to December the 31st, 1953, upon his appointment as a judicial officer. The petitioner in the originating summons wants the court to determine whether such act constitutes a criminal act of perjury, falsification and forgery. He also wants the court to determine whether the CJN has breached the Code of Conduct for Judicial Officers and consequently brought the image of the Nigerian judiciary to a state of disrepute and odium. Lagos Sector Commander of the Federal Road Safety Corps says there are more than 60,000 uncollected permanent driver licenses across the state. The 14 motorists run the risk of being fined 10,000 naira as the Corps begins a clampdown on unlicensed drivers. Badmos reports.
Sitting inside these locked shelves are thousands of uncollected driving licenses at the Road Safety Commission's office in Lagos. They've been processed and ready for collection for months now, but the owners have simply not come forward to collect them. It's a situation that's been giving the head of the Road Safety Commission in the city a serious cause for concern.
What has been going on is that people will apply for license. They will be issued a temporary slip. The man goes with the temporary slip and never cares to come back or go back to the licensing office to go and collect a permanent driver's license. So people drive with expired permanent temporary license. Some drive without license at all.
Thousands of motorists hit Lagos roads every day, but many are without valid driving licenses or carried expired ones. The Road Safety Commission has now decided enough is enough. It's now set to begin a crackdown on offending drivers.
If we actually discover that you don't have a valid driver's license, that vehicle will be impounded. And after 24 hours and you could not produce it, let's assume that we're giving you the benefit of the doubt of go home and go and pick it. You'll be issued citation. And under that, we have 2 options. We could even prosecute you, and we could also tell you, okay, you may wish to waiver your right to go to court and pay the prescribed fine of 10,000 naira.
The exercise is expected to last for 2 weeks and would see road safety officials deployed across Lagos. But for a city that is well known for its nightmare traffic, some fear the crackdown may worsen the traffic situation.
What we are doing is in the interest of the public. You cannot afford to have somebody carrying 18 passengers and he does not have a valid driver's license. So we cannot really put anything, there is nothing you can really use to compare human life. But it will also be done in such a way that we are not going to create any gridlock.
With the announcement of the impending Operation Show Your Driver's License, the number of collections at the Road Safety Office is gradually picking up. You can expect a mad rush at the various licensing offices across the city when the crackdown eventually begins. It's called the last-minute syndrome here, and many have caught it.
The federal government has engaged the United States government over the recent indefinite suspension of interview waivers for Nigerians renewing their visas. Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Oyama disclosed this diplomatic interface when he briefed newsmen on the ministry's activities during the first term of President Muhammadu Buhari. Last week, the United States diplomatic mission to Nigeria suspended indefinitely interview waivers for visa renewers, also known as dropbacks. Oyama said unfavorable migrant decisions taken by some countries were as a result of negative perceptions about few Nigerians who do not obey the laws of other countries. But the federal government is using all resources available to convince the U.S. to lift the suspension. The International Monetary Fund, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and World Data and Analytics Group, Global Data, hopeful that a new refinery being built by Dangote Oil Refining Company will boost future capacity of global crude oil refining. Dangote Group is constructing an integrated 650,000 barrels per day single-train crude oil refinery in the Lekki Free Zone in Lagos. While OPEC in the current edition of its World Oil Outlook expects the Dangote refinery to drive world crude oil refining capacity increase in Africa by 2020. Global Data says with more than 150 mega refineries, including Dangote's, coming on stream, global investments in crude oil refining facilities will rise exponentially. It is forecast that once the Dangote refinery starts operations, it will improve Nigeria's trade balance by $10 billion per year. Coming up, African stories. U.S. sanctions worsen Sudan's economic crisis. And later, international news. Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit gambit fails as her premiership fades.
You are watching ANN.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Kemi just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Malawi's Electoral Commission has begun counting votes following Tuesday's presidential, parliamentary and council elections. The country went to the polls on Tuesday to vote in an election seen as a tough test for President Peter Mutharika, who's running against the deputy president and a former pastor who heads the opposition. So far, many observers say the commission has given a good account of itself, conducting what seem like well-organized polls. There have been no reported major incidents of violence or voting irregularities. The results are being collated at the National Tallying Center in Blantyre. Results are being scanned and sent to the National Tallying Center using specially designed forms that have several security features. Analysts expect a tight presidential race between the incumbent Mutharika and the two opposition candidates. Sudan's economic and political life have been put through the stretcher in the last several years. The economy has been ravaged by a biting U.S. sanctions put in place partly as a result of the now ousted leader Omar al-Bashir and state-sponsored terrorism. Now, experts are saying the U.S. sanctions are doing even more damage to Sudan's economy, already in crisis.
For 20 years, the U.S. had imposed trade sanctions on Sudan. Experts claim these sanctions kept the country's economy in stranglehold. Businesses are unable to operate dollar transactions and investors have shied away.
Babies die because of lack of medicine and equipment. The main cause of their death is the U.S. sanction and the hegemony. If not for these sanctions on the Sudanese economy, I think Sudan would have risen up. It would have benefited from the multiple resources in oil, minerals, agriculture and industry. It is very important to point out that the American sanctions, unfair policies and hegemony crippled the Sudanese economy and limited development of the country.
The U.S. has in currency and weapons the control over the primary principle. Therefore, they impose the conditions and press the other side. The former government would meet the request and the new list came out.
The United States planned and led the separation of the South. They wanted a newborn state in the South in its control to benefit from its resources and strategic role in the Horn of Africa. Sudan lost 70% of its resources. Oil sector took a hit which led to a serious economic crisis in Khartoum.
Washington later lifted the trade sanctions on Sudan in October 2017, but the state sponsor of terrorism listing remained. It has warned it will continue to block access to funding until Sudan is off the terrorism list.
Until the moment, Sudan is unable to reintegrate with the international banking system. This measure has affected the citizens inside and outside Sudan. I do not think there is a clear reason and justified reason why Sudan is on the list for state sponsors for terrorism.
Washington announced in November last year it was beginning talks with Khartoum to remove the listing, but the process was delayed in January by the U.S. government shutdown.
Authorities in Zimbabwe have raised the price of fuel for the second time in 4 months. This time around, prices were increased by a further 50%. The government says it has simply removed fuel subsidies as Zimbabwe struggles to source foreign currency to pay for fuel and electricity import. 5 months ago, there were violent protests in the country's biggest cities when petrol prices more than doubled, making them the most expensive in the world. When we return, international news. Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit gambit fails as a premiership fades. And later, sport. FIFA gives out new rules of football.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News happening around the world. Demonstrations over the outcome of last month's presidential election gripped the heart of Indonesia's capital on Wednesday after an overnight face-off between police and protesters. Jakarta's governor says 6 persons were killed. The protest followed an announcement before dawn on Tuesday by the Election Commission confirming that President Joko Widodo had beaten his challenger, former General Prabowo Subianto, in last month's poll. Crowds swelled in central Jakarta on Wednesday morning, and police say they expected more protesters to join them before nightfall. Some of those arriving carried wooden poles and some had smeared toothpaste around their eyes, apparently to protect themselves from tear gas. Hundreds of students also protested peacefully in the city of Medan in the north of the island of Sumatra, demanding an investigation into alleged election cheating. Tion reported. The General Election Commission confirmed on Tuesday unofficial accounts by private pollsters that gave Widodo a 55.5% share of votes against 44.5% for Prabowo. Prime Minister Theresa May's final Brexit gambit was in tatters on Wednesday, just hours after her offer of vote in the second referendum failed. Nearly 3 years since Britain voted 52% to 48% to leave the European Union, May is trying one last time to get her divorce deal approved by the British Parliament before her rocky premiership ends. May appealed to lawmakers on Tuesday to get behind her deal, offering the prospect of a possible second referendum on the agreements and closer trading arrangements with the EU as incentives. Conservative and Labour lawmakers lined up to criticize the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement bill, legislation which implements the terms of Britain's departure. Some opted to oust her. U.S. President Trump's restrictive immigration policies are said to have warded off some migrants who would have desired living in the country. Now, a slack is showing in many industries, including the trucking industry, where there is an acute shortage of truck drivers who move goods by truck across the country. Some immigrants, especially Africans, are moving in to fill the void. Hendrik Sibrander reports.
Whether it's baby boomers retiring, people leaving the industry willingly or not, or industry growth, truck drivers are at a premium right now in the U.S.
There's a major shortage in North America for drivers.
Mike Uglow with a commercial vehicle training center points to studies showing an estimated 80,000 driver shortfall today, a number that's projected to only go up. Uglow's facility in Watkins, Colorado is maneuvering to help fill those seats. What makes this school unique? East African immigrants make up a large percentage of the students. Young men from countries like Eritrea and Somalia shell out $3,400 for a 4-week combination online and hands-on course that, if all goes well, will pave the way to a commercial driver's license.
These people are good people that are coming to the United States and wanting to change their lives.
The opportunity to earn a good salary puts many of them behind the wheel. The solitary nature of truck driving, with fewer language and cultural barriers, makes it a good fit. The school's instructors, who preach safety constantly, help make the immigrants comfortable here.
Most of the people I see them, they have English problem. So when they get a person who can speak their mother language, things will be easy for them.
That's how we built our business, is being able to cater to those folks.
Uglow says these students are distinguished by their focus, their drive. With about 2/3 of America's freight moving along the nation's highways, the push is on to keep this part of the economy rolling. The trucking industry has increased driver pay, tried decreasing the amount of time drivers spend on the road, and is considering lowering the minimum age of drivers to 18. It's 21 right now. Immigrants are also part of the hiring formula.
I believe they will put a sizable dent in the shortage.
Provided, of course, they can learn things like correctly backing up their tractor trailers, not a skill they ever imagined themselves using, but an absolute must now.
Up next, sports. FIFA gives out new rules of football. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN. Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website, annafrica.net, and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, Africa News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports now, Niger Super Falcons have arrived in Austria for a 2-week residential campaign ahead of the 8th FIFA Women's World Cup finals. The world-renowned Avito Resort, where the team are camping, is the same facility that served the Super Eagles in their final training sessions just before the 2018 FIFA World Cup finals in Russia. Coach Thomas Denabi must pick his final squad of 23 by Friday, after which the final squad and officials will arrive in France in early June. Football officials say the Flying Eagles will not be caught off guard when new rules of the game introduced by FIFA take effect in June. Nigeria is one of the qualified teams for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup that have benefited from the World Football Governing Body's decision to score all the participating countries in Poland. NFF spokesperson Ademola Olajire confirmed that FIFA had trained all participating countries in Poland on the new rules, including the Nigerian team. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and all the stories, visit our social media platforms and join the conversation on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.